Welcome to the Pure Parenthood podcast, brought to you by Purebaby. I'm your host, Tiffany Wells, and I'm the head educator here at Purebaby. Hi everyone, today we wanted to change it up a little compared to previous episodes. Our guest today is Billy Loizou. Billy is a dad to a toddler and a young baby. We wanted to bring Billy on to give a dad's perspective on his journey of parenthood. Billy and his wife are both very hands-on parents, and Billy works from home and also has his own podcast called Created by Marketers for Marketers. In this week's episode, we discuss pre, during and post-birth to provide insight to expecting fathers out there. Hi Billy, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Tiffany.
Oh, it's so great to have you, Billy. I'd love if you could start by telling us a little bit more about your experience in becoming a father for the first time.
Yeah, sure, no worries. Going back 3 years ago now. So I think the best way to kind of go through it is to break it into three areas. I'm going to talk about pre-birth, so before the child, and when we found out we were pregnant, during the birth and post-birth, because a lot changed in 9 months.
I can imagine.
God, a hell of a lot changed in 9 months.
Yeah.
So pre-birth, I think I remember coming home from work, completely unplanned pregnancy. The planned part, unfortunately, we struggled at the start to have kids, and we just stopped trying, I think. And then I came home from work one day, and my partner was really kind of I wouldn't say disconnected, but I felt like she was hiding something from me. So I kept pushing on her to say, look, what's wrong? Like, is something up?
Yeah.
And she turned around and said to me, I'm pregnant. And I just remember my jaw, literally, it was probably like one of those episodes in a comic film when your jaw hits the ground and a little bit of drool came out. She said, I don't know if you were in shock or what had happened. Yeah. But there was everything I ever wanted. I really wanted to be a dad. But then really, really quickly, this fear of change and not knowing what to do set in. Am I ready mentally? I know I wanted this. Am I ready financially? Will I ever be ready financially? And then the fear of what do I do to help? Like, I'm not carrying this baby. I'm just merely on the journey of watching my partner go through her body changing. And I'm quite squeamish, I think, of any kind of process like this. I think I'm not quite good at handling some of these things. So the first thing we did was together went to birthing classes, but it wasn't normal birthing classes, it was hypnobirthing. We felt that really helped. They take you through the process of what Lisa, my partner, is going through at every phase of the journey, and I can be there to support her both leading up to the birth and during the birth. And then you watch a lot of birthing videos. So that kind of squeamish element of not knowing what can go, wrong and what can change throughout the process. I knew kind of what to expect. And a lot of water births, a lot of natural births. And, that I think really connected me with the process and knowing what I could do to not just feel like I'm a fly on the wall watching this happening. And I spent a lot of nights talking to the baby too. So they talk a lot about building a connection as a father with the child. And I would speak to it and hoping that it would know my voice. And believe it or not, the baby would start moving and coming to the surface every time I spoke. Then the final part was packing the hospital bag, so you feel like you're in control. And we had a birthing plan. I wouldn't say we went according to that, but we felt as prepared as we could be.
Yeah, I think it's really great to have a bit of insight there into your experience when you first found out and all those things, because it is such an incredible journey. Myself being a parent, just getting your head around it and then having to think about all the things you've got to do to prepare for that baby arriving is a massive thing, but it's also so exciting. So it's really lovely to hear some of the things that you chose to incorporate and what you learned in that period.
Yeah, the first one was definitely a wild ride. The second was a lot easier because we knew what to expect.
Yeah, definitely. So what about during that the birth, I guess, and the labour? What sort of went on for you there?
Yeah, every night I'd go to bed wondering, is tomorrow the day? They speak a lot about it in hypnobirthing, that it happens when you're relaxed.
Yes.
And it's not like the movies where, like, you know, she says my water breaks. Like, that's very uncommon from what I've been able to gather. But when she told me, it was like 4 a.m. or 3 a.m. She said, I don't think you're going to be going to work today. And I was thinking, like, why? Are the trains down? Like, is the car not working?
Yeah.
And she's like, I think I'm going into labor. And she tells me my reaction was, I got out of bed and I was running around the house like a bit of a headless chicken. She's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. Like, what do I need to do? She's like, you packed the bag. Let's just be patient and wait for the signals of us having to go into the hospital. So I called the hospital and said, you're going to be expecting us probably within the next 12 hours, not knowing how long the labour would take. They say, you need to wait for the contractions to be a certain time apart and to be lasting a certain amount of time. So I tried to help in every way I could. You know, I'd bring Lisa a glass of water, I'd give her a massage, we would create positive affirmations and songs that we think would calm her. I made her a warm bath. Just really was there to offer help. We have a dog who decided to jump on the bed and curl up next to my partner as well. So it was like she knew what was going on. It was quite cute. Yeah. But we had a long, drawn-out labour. So, you know, hypnobirthing really worked in our favour up until a certain point in time. I think it was 23 hours into the labour. Lisa was still very calm and collected and breathing and in a meditative state. We wanted a water birth, but unfortunately, when we got to the hospital, the midwife that was there at the time didn't have hypnobirthing accreditation. So we couldn't have the water birth. But we set up the room quite tranquil, and the music and the candles and a bit of ambience, and every nurse that walked in, doctor that walked in, commented on how good the environment was in our room. So we had to, unfortunately, you know, have some medical assistance, and I went from that squeamish partner who didn't want to even be in the room to doing anything I could to get the baby out safely. You know, I felt a completely different person. I think you surprise yourself in those situations.
Yeah, I think going through something like that with your partner and having that bit of experience with watching other videos and preparing yourself, as you said, mentally and what to expect a bit more. And obviously you worked really hard on creating that beautiful environment for the two of you. Obviously that did really pay off, and finding out that you went from being very squeamish to not, and really being there for her and present and being able to cope with all of that and supporting her is really is a really great thing to hear, I think, and hearing that it is possible to move past some of those things. Because I think sometimes people think, oh, if I'm already squeamish or if I already can't handle blood, I'm not going to be able to handle a birth. Whereas you clearly are a perfect example of that being able to be possible. So it's really great to have heard that, I think. So what about that post time? Because I guess that post time is something that, again, is a whole nother journey.
I'd faint at the drop of a hat.
Wow.
But not anymore. It's kind of it's completely changed me, I think, in that part. And it's nowhere near as bad as you think about. It's actually, I don't know, I'm not actually going through the labour, but I would say that it's a beautiful process.
So that post period then, like I just said, you know, I guess that's a whole nother journey and a whole nother realm, isn't it? So how did you, what were the first things for you that you found were those big moments post birth?
Yeah, well, we were public systems, so we were out of hospital within 48 hours.
Wow.
And I remember, you know, having the chair all set up in the car and heading down to the hospital to pick up my son, putting my son in, like, you know, carrying him so carefully and putting him in the car, thinking, God, she's so small, coming home and putting him on the couch and thinking to myself, what do we do now? You know, we've had all this help at the hospital, and now what do we do? And my dog's, you know, walking around sniffing, you know, like, what is this thing, you know, that you brought into the house? And then really kind of, I guess the thing that hit home for me as the dad was, I had to figure out my role. You know, at least my partner knew she could feed the baby, and she could, she had to learn the art of breastfeeding, which had its challenges as well. But I just had to figure out, like, what can I do to help my partner in any way possible? So, simple things, again, like bringing a glass of water, helping change the nappies throughout the night, burping the baby, and, holding the baby when the baby was crying and trying to put it back to sleep so my partner could get some rest, some well-needed rest as she was healing. And I only had 2 weeks off work. I don't think that's enough time. As a father, you still want to be there, but when you go back to work, you don't really know how to give 100% of yourself at home and at work, because you feel so much pressure to deliver, i.e. bringing in the money for the family and being effective at work. But then you have this stress of, how do I also be present when I'm home? And it's challenging because you're a walking zombie at work as well. Our baby wasn't a great sleeper, and this fogginess of the always felt like the first 12 months, because he just didn't want to rest. He had quite a pair of lungs on him. And what I learned from that was there's no perfect baby. You don't need to put too much pressure on yourself, in particularly at work. People are there to help you. If you've got a team environment in particularly, it's not helpful putting stress on your shoulders and worrying about all the minute detail. It was quite a challenging time, and I reflect on that now, because as I had my second, I definitely found a balance with having other parents at work, other fathers at work that I could empathise with and communicate with that work-life balance, and kind of chip in and help each other out. But it did take a toll on my mental health. I think finding ways to fill up my cup is important as a dad, as important as it is for mum as well. Because definitely you see how it impacts your health, because you would put work and family first before some simple things like going out and shooting the basketball or going for a walk. Things that are good for your mental state and will help you perform better in both work and at home if you just do those things. And I very much chose to put my family and work before my own needs. Going back to that point I mentioned earlier about building a connection, I think a lot of fathers also don't feel like they can connect with the baby because there's no, they're not as involved as they think they could be, or they feel like they should be. And I very much had skin-on-skin connection the moment the baby came out. And because I felt like I spoke to the baby so much before he came out, he automatically would know my voice. So his eyes would follow around the room every time I'd talk. That made me build a special connection with him. So much so that I would have certain sayings that I would say to him. And inevitably, I would say to him, aim for the sky, before I put him to bed, which, made its way into my rap career, or my poetry career, of creating a song for him as well, which he listens to now, called Baby on the Moon. And anything I could do to build a relationship with him at that point in time.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's so lovely to get some insight for everyone out there. It sounds like you've been, on quite a deep dive self-discovery journey, I guess, and you've learnt so much along the way so far. And I think it was so lovely to hear about that strong relationship that you forged with your firstborn by writing such a beautiful, heartfelt, personalised poem and speaking to him regularly. And what a gift to you and to your baby, I think. It's such a wonderful idea. So I really take my hat off to you for doing something so beautiful and being such a hands-on dad. I think that's a wonderful thing to share and to give, I guess, a way in which, other dads could potentially look at finding ways to connect with their baby. That's so beautiful. So as a hands-on dad, if you were to put the ultimate survival kit together, what would it contain, do you think? Because I think that's another thing a lot of people think about, what do I really need as a mum or a dad in a kit of things that you would really recommend for other dads out there? Yeah.
Good question. Survival kit. I remember the first day I took Levi out for lunch with my brothers, and I was so nervous. I was like making sure I had everything and I didn't forget anything and what could go wrong. And a bit of advice to all the dads: don't Google anything. Google's never your friend. Google, if your baby's got it, if anything you Google always leads to, leads to something that you just don't want to get your head into that space. Colic is definitely the one that always comes up on top of the list.
Yeah.
But I would say a nappy bag. 100% bring as many extra nappies as you can, because you never know what can happen at any point in time.
Yeah.
A change of clothes, because of, go back to point one, you never know what can happen at any point in time. And baby wipes. That's for cleaning you and the baby at any point in time.
Yeah.
The things that I think would keep them entertained. So something musical. My son always, and my daughter, like something that played some music. A comforter of theirs, so a teddy of some kind. If they were sleeping somewhere else, they loved some white noise. So there's an app that we have on our phones which plays just some white noise, either raindrops or some wind chimes, and that would always help them get to sleep, and it would definitely block out any noises that may wake the baby up or stop them from falling asleep. And then lastly, again, for both of them, a ball or a toy of some sort. My son just loved carrying a ball around with him, if it was a soccer ball or a basketball or a football. And my daughter's very much the same. She's a little bit more rougher though than him. She, you never know where you're going to find anything that you give her in her mouth or behind the chair. She's definitely a character.
Yeah, great tips there. I think obviously I found even as my kids got older that baby wipes were just one of those things, just having some sort of wipe to, as you said, clean yourself as well as the child.
Yeah.
And all those other things there that you've mentioned are just great tips. So thank you so much for that insight there. So what has been some of the most important purchases that you've made, do you think, as a dad? And how did they help you on your journey as a new father? Because I think, again, there's so many things to purchase out there, but so many things that are unnecessary, but some things are really almost vital. So what would you say have been the best purchases you've made?
Yeah, I think there's a reason for this. And I remember when I was used to live at home with my parents, I was quite young. There was a lady that used to run past our house. She was very fit, actually, and she was pregnant. And I saw her running, and every day she'd run past, same time, same day. And she went from 0 to 9 months. And then I think after 9 months, she disappeared for maybe like a week. And then I saw her running with the pram and then I saw her running with the baby carrier. And I always thought to myself, I want to be physically active when I have kids as well. And I don't want that to limit me from going out and doing exercise. So the two things that we invested in was a baby carrier.
Yep.
It was a baby Bjorn, because it's great for you to get out of the house and get that fresh air, walk down to the coffee shop, go for a walk around a park, go for a walk to the beach. You just literally, it hangs on you, and the baby can sit there quite young. They can sleep on you. When they get older, you can turn them around and they can see the world as you go on your adventure. And it's really practical and easy to put on. And the second is a really good functional pram. Easy to lift and easy to collapse, and fits in the back of the car, because you use that. You use that up until the point where even when they're walking, you change some of the modules and they still sit in it and you can get on with your day. We found those two are the 100% the most important purchases that you need.
Yeah, great advice there. I think it's fabulous that you've made some great suggestions, and interesting to hear what you found most practical, because I think everyone does have different ideas, and there might be something that someone else might find better than others. But I definitely say, in my experience too, a baby carrier and a pram, a good pram to invest in, is definitely the way to go. So what would you recommend for other dads to help them feel empowered and confident as a new father? Because you mentioned a little bit about hypnobirthing, but I guess just delving into that a little bit more, did you feel that really was, the biggest thing that empowered you and made you feel confident as a father?
Yeah, I went through a phase where, meditation, and I still do, I still really believe in the practice of meditation for your mental health.
Yeah.
And what hypnobirthing allowed you to do is, it was a really safe environment. There were like 6 couples on a beanbag, we were all just kind of really open, sharing and talking about what we think of birth versus, being educated on the realities of the birthing process. And we had a really good teacher who took us through, different types of the labor, parts of the labor, should I say, of different types of breathing your partner can do to help push the baby out. Because at the end of the day, it's the body performing a function. And, for me, it was, I don't know, I like getting into the nuts and bolts of how things work. I was one of those kids who would break something just to fix it, not always fix it, unfortunately. Yeah. And hypnobirthing did that. It really empowered me to know what was going on, what my partner was experiencing, and what I could do to help. And it just made me feel 100% more confident of if things did go a certain way or a certain direction, or if I knew my partner needed something, I felt like I knew what I could do to be supportive in every moment of that.
Yeah, that's great. Certainly a lot more people I found and have heard about participating in hypnobirthing and calm birthing courses in particular. So it's great to hear that helped you in those ways and helped you feel more empowered. So have you needed to reach out for support, either yourself or your partner, at any point during, the pregnancy, post-birth? And if so, was there some helpful things that you found that you would recommend to people? And how, who did you reach out to for the, any sort of help mentally?
Good question. Again, we I guess there's internal and external help. I think externally we definitely had some support. My mother-in-law got us a breastfeeding consultant.
Yeah. Lactation consultant. Yeah.
Lactation consultant.
Yes.
That's the word.
Yes.
And she was interesting, I'd say. I think her support was useful, but at the same time, I think added a lot of internal pressure. Not knowing how much to feed the baby, or overfeeding the baby, or underfeeding the baby, and it really started to, I guess, create a lot of they're not rigor, but overthinking as to what we were doing. And the moment we realized the more relaxed we were as parents, then our baby would also be quite relaxed, then the tension was relieved. We internalized a lot of our stresses during the first birth, but I opened up to my partner quite a bit during the second birth and towards the middle parts of our first birth with my son. But it's weird how certain things trigger your emotions. And I remember my partner saying to me how her relationship with our dog has changed.
Yeah.
It's just the other person in the house that we've forgotten about. But she noticed that she wasn't taking him for walks as much, and wasn't giving her all the attention she needed. And it really struck a nerve with her. And she found just a way to incorporate the dog into our day-to-day lives. Again, it doesn't sound like a big deal now. You probably look back at it and go, what were we worried about? Everything's fine, but you just don't know how things are going to change. And I think that creates a lot of discomfort. The challenges with breastfeeding, I think you see it being so simple, but it's not. There's a lot of people struggle with it, and it's not as painless as you think. And I know in particular, that was a challenge at the start, but once we got into that rhythm and everything was locked and loaded, should I say, it was a relationship that she had with both my kids that she really enjoyed, and was actually getting a bit emotional when she knew it was coming to the end of breastfeeding and she had to go to a bottle, because she really treasured those moments. The hardest part is why your baby won't sleep. You complicate that so much. You think to yourself, is it they're overeating and they're not eating enough? Are they sleeping too much during the day, or are they undersleeping during the day? Are they watching too much TV? Well, they're not watching TV at all, but should we have the TV on in the background? Or should we turn all the lights off? Have we had too many visitors over today that stimulated them? All these things. The reality is, they're a baby. They're not meant to sleep throughout the night. You're going to have to get up, and you're lucky if you've got one that does sleep throughout the night and enjoy every moment of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that important information, I think, about your experiences there, because it can be difficult to sometimes, deal with those sorts of mental health issues in becoming a first-time parent as well. So what are some key things that you think dads should know more about pregnancy, and what would you recommend in way of books and apps and podcasts before they become a dad? Because I think from that perspective too, just knowing a little bit more about where you can reach out to, what tools you can utilize might be really helpful.
Yeah, look, podcasts weren't a huge thing when we were having our kids, and now they are. I would have definitely jumped onto a lot more of that content, because I like audio content. But I did watch, there was Beyond Blue released a set of videos called Dad Advice, and it's kind of comical dad humor around being a parent. And I think men have a certain way of engaging with each other, which is making fun of a situation, and hearing other parents or other fathers talk about changing nappies or getting, vomited on for the first time, and just things that you can find the humor in really helped me. I got a good laugh out of it and knew that if it happened to me, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
There was a really good app called Wonder Leaps, which tells you about when the baby's going through certain growth spurts.
Okay.
Really, it's a great app, Tiff. I think it's one of those ones that, it tells you today your baby, or this week, your baby's going to be able to see different distances, which means their world opens up around them, and they're going to start engaging with different things. But that may also be a reason why they're not sleeping. And it was always so accurate. Even now with my second, we still use it, and it's just as accurate as to why she's grizzly. She's in the middle of her third leap. The leap of relationships. She's realizing that you're not there in her room with her when she's trying to sleep. So that's creating anxiety and stress for her. That's why she's crying. And the third was the consultants. I think while we had some great advice from some of our consultants, also take their advice with a grain of salt. I think, you take what you want from it and make your own decisions of what works best for you. But at least you're getting the advice. I think getting the advice is better than no advice at all.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really great to have some suggestions there for other dads that are going to be going through this, because it can be really hard to know where to turn. So what would you recommend for dads to prepare for labour and birth to best support their partner during that birthing process, do you think?
Hypnobirthing.
Yep.
It's going to be the phrase of this podcast.
Yeah,
but I think watching
okay.
birthing videos so you know what to do and what to expect, how to offer support, how to create a nice environment. That's what it's all about. For me, and that's the main thing to focus on. I would say those, what can be quick or very long labours, are just so important for a dad to know how he can be helpful.
Yeah.
And now that, I've become a father, a lot of other dads speak to me because, I've was one of the first in my friendship group to have kids. So asking me what I'm going through, and now vice versa. I wish I could have opened up, more and spoken to more fathers when I had the chance. But, what are you going through? How do you deal with certain things? And we do now actually have, a dad's group. There's all of my mates have kids now, and we just say, my son's now, 2 years old, and he's doing certain things that are, that he never used to do before, that are quite cheeky. Like, how do you discipline and how do you deal with them? And it just really creating that open network of being vulnerable, I think, is really important.
Although it might have been hard for you to watch, some of those birthing videos, it sounds like it really helped to normalise the birthing process for you, which is really great. And I think, like you said, talking to other dads and discussing what might be, ways to deal with things sounds like a really great idea as well. So what has been some of your biggest learnings so far as a father since you started your parenthood journey? Because I think that knowing what you may have gained might open things up for other people and help them realise the amazing things that you can learn on this parenthood journey, and just from a father's perspective would be really nice to hear.
Yeah, it's probably three things I would say. I said before, I was one of the first in my friendship group to have kids, and quality over quantity really came through as one of the most powerful kind of themes, I think, of having kids. And it was the biggest learning. People come and go in your life, but the ones who really want to be there for you during these challenging times and these beautiful times will definitely shine through. And so more of quality time with the ones you love and more quality time doing the things you love is really important. All those things that kind of fill your day before you have kids disappear. And it's not like, I do miss some of the things, but it's just, I felt much more purpose in less quality things than a lot of things, if you know what I mean. And just being there, being around my kids, making sure I'm home for dinner time, making sure when I'm here I'm present, those small things that are just so important. They won't forget that. My son yells at me now, get off your phone. You know, if I'm on my phone and I'm at the dinner table or something trying to work, and again, be mindful, quality. You've always got time to work when they're asleep. Having empathy for yourself and your partner, communicating as much as possible. It's okay to feel a certain way. Just, you know, let it pass. You know, just like a cloud, it will go away. It's not going to stick there with you forever, and learn how to deal with those things and open up about them. And for men in particular, you know, don't stop looking after yourself. You know, you can really be a better dad and better at everything you do if you work out ways in the first few months of the baby being born to do things that fill your cup. So go for exercise, listen to music, write music, go to the gym, or whatever it is that you need to incorporate into your life as a father. Make sure you do that.
Yeah, I think that's so important. So thank you so much for your insight today, Billy. It's really been interesting hearing about your journey from your perspective, and I think that everyone will have really enjoyed hearing about your experiences. I have. I'm sure that it's just been so insightful to everyone out there, and thank you so much again.
No, thank you for having me. To all the dads who are listening, you can do it, and it's the most fulfilling thing you can ever do in your life. So good luck.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thanks for that advice, Billy. I hope you've learned a few things today while listening, and I would love for you to learn more about Dad's Vice. So if you'd like to hear more about it, please head to www.beyondblue.org.au and search for Dad's Vice. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in today. I hope you found this helpful. Don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends about this podcast, and if you'd like listening, please leave us a review. See you next time.